Hey everybody. So today we're going to be talking about season 2, episode 5 of House of the Dragon, Regent. And with me today I have random internet guy, RIG.
Hey.
Hey,
It's
RIG.
good to be here. It's been a little minute since I've been doing Song of Ice and Fire related content, so this is going to be kind of fun.
Yeah, and we get to talk about the Good Dragon Show. RIG, what are your thoughts on the Dragon Show so far? What are your thoughts on season 2 as a whole? Because we're...
So overall, I'm liking it.
Yes.
And I don't know if you know my kind of catchphrase about the first show, or if anyone listens in your audience knows about my kind of catchphrase about the first show. But my feeling on the first season was that there was a writer's room where Condal and all the good writers were getting all the good writing done. And then there was a different room, a seedy motel room somewhere deep in the back streets of LA. And they had D&D in that room. And there was a machine where they managed to 3D print the actual Mush-room from the books into real life. And they 3D printed him into reality.
Oh my God.
And him and D&D wrote all the bad scenes from the first season. And that's called the Mush-room. So basically that was split between great scenes supported by great acting, and then what I can only imagine is scenes that came from a secret room that contained D&D and the actual character Mush-room. The second season has been, I would say, less rocky in that instance. There's been some weirdness, but overall, I think that they have definitely, as a show, they hit their stride early on, and they've kept it going, which is... that's really I don't want to always sound like a hypercritic, but that's one of the things that you really want from a TV show, right? Like a good TV show, even if it's got some goofs, is going to hit a great stride, keep you engaged, and keep going. So that's kind of my overall thoughts.
Gotcha. That's fair. It's funny that you bring that up, because I've heard that when House of the Dragon, when the Dance of the Dragons, when it was first being pitched, the producers wanted episode 1 to be Lucerys being killed by Vhagar and the death of Viserys, and that would be season 1, episode 1, and then we do the entire war from there. Which bad? No, that's not how you do a show. That's not a good place to start.
Same rumor too, and I, to be honest, I think the real Mush-room is the HBO basically the people who are above the actual writing team who tell them, kind of crack the whip. They're probably the ones who give us the weird scenes.
Yeah.
In one way or another, either by asking for stuff that's they're like, hey, you gotta say a grotesque word 10 times in the episode, or we need to see a penis.
Yep.
Because and to be fair, honestly, a lot of those scenes that could be goofier were handled pretty well. I think the Daemon sex scene early on had some goof, but then it also had some good quality use of naked interactions and sexualness and vulnerability in characters and stuff that was actually really good. So sometimes they'll do a scene where maybe it'll be a little rough initially, but they'll pull it off. And I think a lot of that might come from what you're saying, because I heard the same rumor, which was that the main, I don't know what they're called, but HBO, I guess, the powers that be wanted the show to start at a certain point that was pretty far along in the war, or far along in the story of the war, the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
And the writers wanted to start way back. And I'm in favor of the writers. I thought that was a better choice. I thought that they had a better understanding of the material and what would make it. You can't just start it off with the fight, because we as the audience don't care. We don't who we don't care, So I think they had to compromise a lot, but overall I'm not I wouldn't necessarily criticize the whole way they pace the show. It's there's bad drawbacks and there's some things that are good, and that probably comes from them making a compromise in theory.
Yeah, the season definitely feels more, I would say, consistent in quality, because I think back to season 1, and there were some really great episodes in season 1, but you had situations where Viserys slowly crawling towards the throne in episode 7, or episode 8 rather, immediately followed by episode 9, where Rhaenys just busts busts out of the floor and then doesn't kill anybody, but kills all the civilians.
Yeah, scenes that are kind of rough. And that's what I mean. Where it's like, you could argue that maybe the whole content could be redeemed or whatever. But yeah, the execution is not great. Versus the Viserys scene, like when he's going towards the throne. I mean, who wasn't legitimately cheering?
Yeah.
I was like actually like having a good time. Which is that's all you can expect from a show. Is that if it's really giving you a good time and making you feel good about watching it, that's great. So. That was a good scene.
Let's talk a little bit about this episode where, I'm seeing people on the internet critique this episode as being like, quote, boring and slow. What do you think about that? Because I don't know. I for me, I generally just like disagree with that sentiment. But
I don't know. I would say there are pacing issues with House of the Dragon. Don't get me wrong. I have praises, but I also would say sometimes their pacing can suffer. So I can see the complaint. I wasn't really finding it to be necessarily boring and slow. Although, like I said, there's definitely down points where things are kind of lulling, but you're not super intrigued. I thought, like, if you want to talk about this particular scene, I thought it wasn't necessarily that bad overall as the idea. Like we're gonna film the big head being paraded through the streets.
Yeah.
There maybe could have been a little bit more dialogue, a little more interaction. The smoke machines that appear to be powering the cart, those were not doing it for me. I thought maybe people should have been a little bit more like, this head has traveled probably like for a week at least. Like how long does it take to get from the Riverlands or Ravens River, wherever the fuck they were at, to here? It must be some time, right? Like in a cart. Like Arya, when she travels through Riverlands, they're pushing ox carts, and it's really bad at a certain point. Or maybe are they mule carts? They're pushing carts, but either way, it's a slow going because they're having to plan. This is a huge head, so I'm like, it should have been like rotting. Maybe is the right.
Yeah, a little bit more rotted. Like Brienne spends an entire book
dried up and shriveled. Like what if it had been kind of like dried, like jerky, like they'd salted the head to keep it from decomposing to the point where it stank. I don't know if that works.
Like what they did with Maester Aemon.
Yeah, let's say that they'd done something with it, and or they tried to and they'd failed. They're like, we tried to pickle it, but we ran out of pickle juice. And the people are just utterly disgusted by this half-rotten head. Maybe they could have added some spice that way, I think. But, I think it was overall, other than the smoke machine effects was kind of my big drawback to the scene. Other than that, I was like, this is pretty fun. We're getting to see the giant dragon head paraded through the streets. And just to touch back on the previous episode, I don't remember from reading the book. I remember it one time, but I thought the fight ended a little bit differently in the book, but I did like kind of the more dynamic fight. Like you could maybe criticize it as being a little bit cheesy. Like, okay, we all knew Vhagar was going to do a jump scare, and how do you jump scare with the biggest
right? Vhagar has a 100% success rate whenever she uses sneak attack. It's crazy.
I know, right? It's shocking. It's like when you know how to power game, and you're like, I could build my ogre with 100% stealth.
Yeah.
Okay, it's funny, but you're clearly violating the spirit of the game, if not the mechanics. And it's funny. It's amusing in video games, not so amusing in TV shows, I would argue. But I did like the dynamic changes, like how it wasn't just they were all grappling in one big ball that fell to the ground. I liked how there was a bit of some stages to the fight.
Because in the books, Vhagar blasts the both of them with fire, and then the fight is over. And then it's done.
That was something that bleeds into this episode that I thought I wanted to talk about. That was kind of fun, that I enjoyed. I don't know if this is a big criticism kind of thing. I don't know if people like the decision or not, but I can't remember that well from the books, but I don't believe we get any serious discussion or serious allusion to Aemon trying to usurp his brother by, attacking him in the fight hall.
Yeah.
Gods of Blue. And so the fact that they added that, and that contention, and the problem with the prostitute lover that he has, and his brother being a total douchebag and basically ruining his fucking life, all of that, I think, added some dynamic elements that are fun, and so you can argue whether or not that's the best way to interpret the material or whatever, but I do like that the writers are trying to make a different story than is what verbatim is on the pages, but that way you can see, oh, that's how this got translated to the pages, so that's why this got left out or whatever, and it's like, it's fun. They're playing both within the written story, but they're also playing around it in creative ways that I enjoy.
Yeah. I have kind of a funny question for you. That some people in the Discord, in the Interesting Nerd Club Discord, were talking about earlier. But who do you think is the narrator for House of the Dragon? Because in the books, we technically have 3 narrators. We have Mush-room, we have Eustace, and Barth. Who do you think is the narrator of the film adaptation? Is it Grand Maester Condal?
I assume there was no narrator, but maybe I'm wrong about this. My assumption is that what they were doing is they were doing their interpretation of the events. Like, they looked at the book and went, okay, obviously this didn't go down this exact same way, so we're going to write what actually happened.
Gotcha.
And I think that was the intention, but I could be, maybe we'll be wrong. Like who knows? Maybe we'll see at the end that one of the maesters is writing this down, and maybe we'll see I was spacing on his name, but the current maester is
Orwyle, I think.
What now?
Or Grand Maester Orwyle, I think is his name.
Yeah, I say, isn't he one of the ones whose writings ends up in the books? There's like a couple. There's like 1 or 2 maesters who get quoted like a lot. Like So it's like I feel like we might see him writing notes or something like that. Maybe his writings are what gets picked up, and maybe his notes are what comprises his writings that gets picked up later on. That is what's used to put the whole tome together.
Yeah.
I'm probably getting all this wrong because I'm not that well versed in the Fire and Blood and the Blood and Fire. But it's all written for Baratheon, right? Isn't it all written as a big ass bundle and kind of bundled up and presented to him when he takes the throne or when he's been in power for a little bit? Is that the lore of the book?
I'm not sure. I think the book Fire and Blood, like in universe, was written after Robert's rebellion, but it only went up to a certain point, not like up to the reign of Aerys II and those guys. But
I'm getting all that wrong. But I thought like either the World Book or Fire and Blood or one of those was like written and it was like presented to the king or something like that, or it was intended to be like finished on like one of his like anniversaries or something like that. So it was like it has like an in-world story, and so I think that we might find out that maybe if we do find an author or a narrator or whatever in this series, it might be whoever's notes comprised the sourcing for the guy who wrote that book,
Or it's just Bran. Or it's just Bran.
I think it's no narrator. I just think it's like, we're just supposed to experience the story as told by the House of the Dragon writers,
That's fair. So RIG, how this show works, and I should have probably explained this to the people at home, but I have a series of images on the top of my screen, and they are just going to serve as talking points for us. So one final thing I would like to bring up, looking at this picture of Meleese's head, who do you think is quote unquote winning the war right now, RIG? What's the standing in Westeros right now?
Yeah, who's winning right now?
Yeah.
So if I recall, just like in terms of dragons, right now, Team Green actually does have the field advantage. They don't have the numbers, but they do have the Vagar.
Yes.
And they have just won more or less a series of very important morale victories. So the Greens, I would say at this point in time are, I don't want to say they're at their zenith, but they're definitely not at a low point. I feel like that they're doing pretty well outwardly. They're just suffering from inward turmoil, which is what everyone seems to be suffering from.
Yeah.
So I want to say Rhaenyra, it kind of is at a low point in terms of her force cohesion, and that's a big issue because
she doesn't have
access to more dragons, but they haven't gotten any new riders yet. And all of the rest of her affairs have kind of fallen apart because Daemon keeps being an asshole.
Yeah, she doesn't even have a land army right now. That's honestly, like,
powerful for her.
And honestly, like,
some of that stuff. So
honestly, like, for the Greens, like, getting rid of Aegon, I would argue that that's probably like a good thing for the Greens, because I would say that Aemond is more, capable in a leadership role, and so
I have an interesting counterpoint to that.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So I partially like I said, the Aemond takeover, because you can see, and they make it so vivid. I loved it when Helena's like, "Was it worth it?" And he's sitting there, he's like drooling over the throne.
That was not subtle.
So this is Daemon. This is Daemon. No, this is also Daemon. They're the same thing. Like, do you murder your brother to take the throne? And obviously, Daemon says yes. He says, yes, I do. Yes, I kill that motherfucker to take that throne. Daemon said no, but both of them, the throne is more or less what has driven them to the point where they're going to collide. They both want it. They both react to it in the same way, and they're going to kill each other over it. So that's really negative for Green leadership, because unfortunately, say what you will about the Hightowers, and I'm not huge a Hightower apologist or nothing like that. But they are a lot better at leadership than many of the rogue Targaryen elements. Like that tends to be what confounds people like Daemon, is that the Hightowers are just they're just good at running the show and managing the bureaucracy and doing the politics and all the backstabbery. So I feel like what's happening with Team Green is they're at the height of their ability to project power in terms of their dragons and their military. But they also lost some of their dragon power, and they lost the king that is everyone's used to, and so now they have the guy who's been reaching for the throne, and so now power is totally up in the air, and there's a whole bunch of people fighting over it. And Aemon, that's the thing, is he's so young. I mean, he has no real fucking experience doing anything. He's more or less just a kid, just like everybody else, and so all he really is thinking about is the throne, which like I said, great parallel to Daemon. I love the Daemon parallels and how it's gonna cycle into the throne is basically what's gonna drive these people to kill each other, but that's bad. You don't want your king to be a throne obsessed weirdo who's gonna have to get his eye stabbed out by his uncle to fucking act right. That's not good.
Yeah. All very fair points. I would honestly say that after this episode in particular, I can really see, knowing what's to come, and Rhaenyra wanting to get all of these new dragon riders, it's very easy to say that, Team Black is currently on the upswing and Team Green is maybe losing a bit of the stability that they have. But yeah, after this episode, honestly, I'd say that Team Black and Team Green, they're both pretty even, with Team Green maybe starting to lose some of the power that they started the season off with, and Team Black is currently on the upswing. Because you have to remember, back in episode 1, Aegon had probably had the best council that he could ever dream of, and he's just slowly been firing Otto, allowing Kristen Cole to exactly. He's doing all of this all of these self-destructive behaviors. That's just
Otto was really smart. He had positioned the Greens to it's he said in his own words that they hold all the legitimacy symbols.
Yeah,
they hold the throne, they hold the capital, they hold the biggest dragon. It's game over. They really don't have to do anything. They just kind of have to chill out and wait for Rhaenyra's forces to fall apart due to internal fighting. And that's where things go wrong, is because they can't, take it easy. And then there was some murder, and that murder made it even harder to take it easy.
Yeah. And like Aegon was a person who like couldn't really stand still. Like that's something that a lot of the younger characters in this show are. That's something that a lot of these younger characters can't really seem to escape. Is like they think that they have to be active in, like, with Jace this episode going to the phrase and letting Cregan Stark down. Yeah, all of these younger characters think that they need to be active or else they're useless. But like really, Alicent had a good point last episode where like Aegon, the best thing Aegon could have done is just like nothing. Is nothing. Yeah. Back in episode 1, if he had just done nothing and like let the more experienced people on his council do their thing, like I think like Team Green would be like way more powerful than they are currently.
Yeah, Team Green's biggest failing is that they keep trying to take actions, and it's like, no, you already are sitting on top of the hill. Just sit still. Just chill out, and they'll attack you, and every time they do, it will look super bad, and that'll gradually just tear their support apart internally.
Yeah. Now talking about Team Green and I guess shifting power dynamics, Alicent was really interesting this episode for me because there was this scene. This scene at the beginning of the episode where she sees Aegon in his like disfigured state, and also the scene later in the episode where she's by Aegon's side just like holding his hand or whatever, and Aegon says "mummy," which kind of broke me a little bit. Do you think Alicent...
It was so sad when she walked away before he says it.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to feel for Aegon because he's a real horrible piece of shit. But at the same time, you're just like, that was sad,
That was sad, yeah. Like, that's something that...
Like, what a dark scene, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What... Do you think Alicent... Okay. I've seen a lot of people on the internet compare Alicent to Cersei. Where do you stand on that? And specifically, where do you stand on that... in regards to like how both of them treat their children?
I mean, so like there's definitely similarity, I would say, in certain regards, but at the same time, I feel like Cersei is like a very different animal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think that if you saw inside of either Alicent or Rhaenyra's head, you get a Cersei chapter. That's just my opinion. They were like I think there's this tendency, and this is going to get a little weird or something. I just think of this in this fandom. There's this tendency to call any woman the epitome of crazy women, which is Cersei, and it's like I don't know that every queen that be trippin' is Cersei. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So I think it's perhaps an unfair accusation. Obviously Alicent is like not my favorite queen, and she has lots of problems, but. Hard to like queens in this series. A lot of them have some problems. But no, I personally really think that she's a great character, and the thing with her is that really she in this scene, unlike Cersei. Sorry, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong scene. Is this the one where she wants to declare herself regent, where she's like, I should be the regent?
This is the scene where she is looking upon Aegon's disfigured body.
Oh, okay, sorry. We were talking about Cersei, and I got off track.
No worries. But, I mean, we can talk about the small council scene as well, because, like, this we are talking about Alicent after all.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about both. I guess I have just a few comments on both. I'll comment on the small council really quick just to finish it up. So, when she goes to make herself regent, unlike Cersei, who wants to be regent because she's whack and crazy, I think that Alicent actually, in fact, would have made the best regent because, like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm incorrect about this, but I feel like that she would have probably immediately sacked Kristen Cole from the handship and brought her dad back, and that's probably the best play they have. Like because they're holding all of the important chips, they don't really have any major objectives. Like they have all of the most powerful houses. Yes, the Starks could muster an army. This is true. Yes, they could. The Riverlands aren't keen to fight, so the Starks are going to have to get that army all the way through the Riverlands that aren't keen to fight, and maybe are actively resisting, depending on how pissed off David makes them. And then they're going to show up at the basically at the end of a bunch of choke points and locked down areas with fucking Lannister forces, and I'm guessing Greenland forces and all kinds of stuff. And then the Crown's got better dragons, and they already hold all the important positions. So the Crown doesn't need to siege anything, and the enemy has to siege everything. Like, it's just, if they just brought Hightower back, and if she had just implemented a policy of chilling out, again, probably better. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't really see how Team Green gains much of anything by attacking anybody. Like, this is even, like, to go to Rhaenyra's council really quick, like, her lords are telling her, and I think she's telling the lords or something like that, that Cole's attacking all of these strategically inconsequential castles that are held by people that she has on her council. And, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so if he's just sieging a bunch of random shit, like, who the fuck cares? That's fine. Who cares? Let him exhaust resources and drag people out and piss people off. As long as your lords know that you have a comprehensive plan, you're in a better position. They're just wasting their time. And that is fundamentally the position the Greens hold, like, from the beginning, almost, right? So, like, I think that Alicent, and I'm getting way off track, but I think that Alicent is not necessarily doing a Cersei. I think she actually is probably the most qualified person to take the position. And interestingly enough, she probably does embody, at this point, a lot of what the Old King was about, which, just in general, it represents a period of stability that everybody seems to pine for. So, like, that's what I'd say about that, whole element of her.
I found the scene, I found the small council scene, this episode really interesting because we had this shot of the camera just panning in on Alicent's face for like a minute straight, where like even the sound, the audio in the background like starts to fade out. I'm suspecting that Alicent's maybe realizing that she maybe she's on the wrong side. I think she's feeling like, oh, I'm on the side of the patriarchy, and that's biting me in the ass. Whoops.
Well, I think that's a line she's had to walk her whole life. Yeah. And once again, her dad, the very end, was willing to start walking that back, where for the good of the realm, in their mind, because they're obviously one faction in the realm, but for the good of their faction and for the good of the kingdom in their court, he was not going to embarrass her in front of her kids, and he was not going to push back, and he was going to let her hold sway and power. And so, like, that, they had forged a real dynamic alliance in order to keep these wild kids in check and keep unity in the house, and that's like a good thing, for them at least, in terms of their abilities. And so I think that this is like, she's always was battling that before, and she finally got it worked out, and now she's back in the same boat.
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, fuck my lover, my son, my council, none of these people want to make an alliance with me. They all want to usurp me for power. This is annoying. Just hurdled this obnoxious incident with my father, and now I can't hurdle it with anybody else.
Yeah, like, who does she have at this point? Like, I guess Orwyle, but I don't know how much sway Orwyle has politically. A little bit of spoiler talk. Not so much, actually. Alicent doesn't really do a whole lot in the books at this moment. In the Dance of the Dragons, we still have 3 more episodes. Like, where do you think her character is going? Like, emotionally, I guess physically as well. Like, if you think there's going to be a huge shift, but what do you think Alicent's arc is going to be this season?
So, not to get too spoily, like you said, but her end is not great, as I recall. She's locked away, kind of mad in a tower, more or less. And that's because everybody she knows dies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I think what's going to start happening is, I think that this, I don't I don't recall, but she does not return to any sort of height of power after, like her power has waned, right? And she is gradually pushed further and further out from power after this.
Yep. Right? Her queen days are over. She is.
Yeah. So I think that if that's the case, that we're going to see a downward slide. Her relationship with Cole is going to fall apart as he gets increasingly jaded and pessimistic, and her relationship with her son is going to collapse. And I think that Hightower does return to court at a certain point, right? Mm-hmm. Like they don't go to the High Tower to chop his head off, right? Like he's there in King's Landing for them to go.
Yeah. Here's my prediction. So a bunch of people were like iffy with the scene in episode 3 where Rhaenyra and Alicent spoke at the Sept.
That was a little bit weird for me, to be honest.
I believe that the reason why that scene existed early on in this season is because I predict, and this is not a spoiler because this is my prediction, and this scene doesn't really happen in the books, but I predict that Alicent and Rhaenyra, like somehow, like however they get there, I believe that they're going to have a similar scene in episode 8 where Rhaenyra and Alicent will talk. Yeah, where Rhaenyra and Alicent will talk once more, but now Alicent is on the back foot, right? It's Alicent like making these pleas to Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra rejecting her. I feel like the roles are gonna switch.
I think we might get something like that when Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, because like I said, Alicent just gets she's a prisoner at that. She does not flee King's Landing.
Yeah.
She's and at that point she's basically locked up forever almost. Mm-hmm. So like,
and you know, maybe
they're gonna have some kind of conversation.
Yeah, maybe that is the season finale. Maybe it's going to be season 3. We don't know. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
I honestly, so we talked about a little bit about, I was bringing up pacing issues beforehand, and so like outside of episode pacing issues, which I'll agree sometimes happen or whatever, the biggest problem with pacing for me has been the quickness of unfolding of events. Like honestly, I could use slower. I could use us, still being back in the season 1 events right now.
Yeah, like having 2 more episodes back in season 1 even.
Yeah, like I wish they would release like the mega cut or something in the end, where it's like all of the cut footage or whatever. They add enough of it back to add like a half hour to an hour onto each episode, and then they just meet it out a little bit, like a little bit more meat and fat to each episode,
Because if I remember correctly, like there was going to be an Alicent and Viserys like wedding scene in like the earlier episodes, but they just cut that out, which sucks because like. Like I saw some of the costume designs for Alicent back in that episode, and like, I wish we would have gotten that.
It'd be great if they could release like a huge, even if it was a little rough, like where even if they didn't have fully all the scenes and they just had to throw in some captions and just be like, this scene was taken from what would have been the blah blah blahs. I would still watch it, even if it was that level of raw, where they're like, we don't have the full scene, only half of it was shot, and then then it was cut from the final production, and the rest was never made. Yeah, but you can see the first half. Okay, good. Put it in there. Give me a fucking summary at the end. I think that would be really cool because it's like that's one of my only major pacing issues where I'm like, oh man, it's that I feel like that we cover ground kind of fast in certain instances, and we don't cover we don't cover enough things.
Yeah, that's fair. And back to the pacing issues that people were complaining about, like for this episode of, people saying that this episode felt slow. This episode, like, I don't know if you realize, but there's a lot of plot that happens. Like Jace flies to the twins and then flies back. Daemon allows the Blackwoods to fuck with the Brackens, and then all of the Riverlords condemn him, and Aemond takes power in King's Landing, and like so many things happen this episode, and if anything, like it felt really fast, and I thought maybe this episode should have been, split into two, if anything.
Yeah, no, I think that could be said about a lot of the episodes, to be honest.
Okay.
That they could have, or they could be meted out by like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Where we could get a little bit of extra time.
Yeah.
And there's some things that, quite frankly, like, I would totally cut. Like, Damon's spec ops going through the castle with his sword like a gun weirdness.
Yeah.
Like, get it out of here.
Yeah.
I love Matt Smith, don't get me wrong. I'm actually kind of hoping that they do a Rogue Prince spinoff. I'm kind of hoping for that, to be quite honest. I think they keep Matt Smith, they do a Rogue Prince spinoff, and it's good.
Yeah.
But they gotta not do that. They gotta cut that shit out right away. They gotta stop that. I don't like that. I like all of the other Matt Smith scenes where he's getting to do his good acting, not where he's like being Master Chief with a sword. Like, stop that. Just knock it off. So I would say sometimes there's things like that I would cut outright, but give me a lot more time with him riding around with the boys, torching the Brackens. Show me what his goons were doing a little bit, not too much of it, but give us a taste of why it was so bad, because obviously you're paralleling to Clegane ride through the Riverlands with the Brave Companions and all those guys that were abusing the Riverlands in the other series. We're making a direct parallel here, so show us a little bit of that stuff. You don't gotta show anything crazy, but they could have showed riders riding through villages, spearing people as they tried to flee, and burning houses and carrying the Targaryen banner, and they could have made a little bit of a scene out of that rather than Daemon, doing his thing. Or we could have had more dragons flying time. It's never a bad moment on the dragons, right? That's always fun.
Caraxes was so awesome this episode. Honestly, okay, Caraxes was so awesome this episode.
Daemon's Dragon's the best dragon in the series.
Heck yeah!
In my opinion, I think a lot of people also love Vhagar. Like Tom loves Vhagar, and I do love Vhagar. It's like a giant iguana, You can't. There's nothing to hate about a giant iguana.
Yeah.
But if we don't get to see them, it's not as much fun. So so I agree that every time we see Caraxes, good scenes. It's fun. It's cool. I like when Daemon's being a sassy asshole on Dragonback. Love it or hate it, it's more fun than him commandoing around.
Look at this guy.
Look at this was a very visually pleasing scene, and it was one of the scenes in which the dragon didn't look bad, and CG is hard to do.
Look at this text on top of this image. To exit full screen, press escape. We're very professional on this show. Okay.
I like this one, and then like I say, it's more fun too because he's got the boys. He's like, you can tell they're kind of patrolling around.
Yeah. Honestly, I believe that the showrunners didn't really know what to do with Daemon this season, and so he's at Harrenhal. He trips balls for 3 episodes and does some stuff. But they're cool. They're cool.
It, to be quite honest,
they're cool.
I like the Harrenhal trip, but they could have had more fun with it.
Yeah. Maybe 2 episodes. 2 episodes for all of the trippy stuff, and then we're down to business. We're burning the Brackens or whatever.
Well, so HBO loves gratuitous violence, right? And maybe I'm gonna get flack for saying this, but we could be reflecting on times where Daemon did some gratuitous violence. We could be watching him crushing Lady of Aaron's head with a stone. We could be we could be watching him make that toast about his brother's son, where he actually does say "king for a day," and oh my god, he really did say it, or whatever. Or when he goes back and does that toast and he says "king for a day," and everyone cheers, and then we look across the bar, and there's Daemon.
Yeah.
Daemon runs up to Daemon, and he's like, "I didn't say it. Fuck you, it's not true." And he has a big aneurysm about how he didn't actually say it, but he was so pissed at his brother that he wanted his brother to think he did. The brother dynamic was a fantastic thing. I loved that from the first season. There was so much cool character in Daemon being a brother who he didn't like want to usurp the throne, but he did, and he was mad at himself for it, but he also wanted to take care of his brother, but the only way he could show his love was by being an asshole, because that was how he got attention. Like, it was bizarrely human. And I was like, oh, this is good. I like this. It's good. And so, like, I would love to have seen some of that, you know, in a bit of the flashbacks, you know, like, maybe we will too. Who knows? We were only like 5 episodes in. There's plenty of time for more drug-induced Harrenhal.
There was so much ambiguity surrounding Damon. Have you noticed this? Like, the show, I feel like whenever possible, the show makes it so that, oh, you know, Damon might have said this, maybe he didn't. You know, I think, you know, back to what you were saying, like the air for a day, like that was ambiguous. And like the orders that he gives Blood and Cheese in episode 1, also ambiguous. And like the orders that he gives the Blackwood guy this episode, also very ambiguous. I
think it's a note that they might hit on too often, but when they hit on it right, it's cool, you know. And I think that part of the problem is kind of like what I was saying before. They don't necessarily capitalize on it into like a chain of events. Like with the air for a day, it was a big important incident, and the show made you think he said it, but they didn't actually ever show it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they left a perfect door open for themselves to show that he actually didn't say it, and have him have a reflection about how he was internally twisted and and like contentious in his heart. You know, like what's that George R. Martin shit? Like the human heart in conflict. He was
with itself,
in his heart about his brother, and so he wanted to piss him off, but he never actually said it. And that's what he could say, like, to himself. Like I said, a drunk Damon could make the toast, and sober Riverlands Damon could run up and start shaking drunk Damon and be like, I never said it, I just wanted to fucking make him mad, you know?
Yeah.
I never said it, though. I didn't mean it, like, you know? Like, that's the kind of stuff that it's human heart in conflict. Like, we all thought he said it because he's a dick, but maybe he didn't, you know? And I think that they, rather than, like I said, like chain eventing it with that sort of stuff, where they continue to use the natural evolution of the plots they've started, they a lot of times want to add a new one. Oh, he gets the Blackwoods to get the Brackens, but the Blackwoods do evil stuff. You know, like, come on, how did he not how the problem with that one was they showed the conversation and that he made it like pretty clear like that the crown couldn't be seen to be involved, and then the guy ran through Riverlands with Targaryen banners like that. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Now, maybe that's from the book. I don't remember, to be quite honest.
I don't remember either.
But I just saying that, like, even if it was, that's a weird thing. Like, if the characters have what appears to be on screen a very genuine conversation, where there is what appears to be a very clear understanding of the need for the crown to not be seen as complicit in these acts, and then the guy immediately flies the Targaryen banners, like, well, okay, so unless you're going to establish that he was a traitor who was trying to fuck with you, that doesn't make any sense. You know, and so it's like, it's one of those events that you can't control. It spirals out of hand, just like Blood and Cheese, just like, you know, this, just like that. It's a theme in the series. I get it, but at a certain point, it breaks the immersion, because I'm like, come on, like how did this happen? You know, like, so like maybe what they should have done is they should have just you know, had one of the fucking Blackwoods be like, you know, what we should do is we should pillage the shit out of their peasants, and then some of the other Blackwoods would be like, you know, you can't do that. That's messed up. Even the Bracken peasants don't deserve, you know, unregulated warfare. And then Damon could like get a scowl on his face, and you're like, oh shit, what's he gonna do? And it cuts. Ooh. And then we find out. But yeah, so I don't know. Those are all like writing nitpicks, you know, nitpicking. I think a lot of people don't really give a shit about any of that stuff. I think they more just want the scenes to be fun, and this was a fun scene, in my opinion.
It was.
The only thing is, I really wish they'd ended it with some fire. They do all this fire, and when it doesn't make a lot of sense, like the two, like Vhagar is practically burning her own poor tail, and like it's just not the time for fire. And then here we don't even get to see the fire.
Yeah.
You burn guys and their horses. That would have been kick-ass.
All of the dragon budget and all the fire budget went into last episode, which, you know, that's fair, I guess.
Yeah, I just wanted to see. I wanted to see. It doesn't have to show everything, but like, wouldn't that have been great? Some like like Dragonfire, where all this dude and his whole posse just burst into flames. But it cuts at that point.
Okay. While you
because I know the scene was cool where the guy's like, we choose fire. He turns his back because he's like, he knows he's about to get torched. He doesn't really want to like look at the dragon.
Yeah.
It's a cool scene, but show me torched, man.
Yeah. I just noticed something while I was looking at this photo. Is that how if you see where my mouse is at, is that how dragons?
The dragons sitting on their wing knuckles.
Yeah, because what do you think about that? I just noticed. Is that how they do that?
This is the proper way for George R.R. Martin dragons, right? So more or less, George R.R. Martin dragons function like pterosaurs, right?
Yeah.
Where they have like feet, but they don't have like arms.
They have 2 feet.
So,
yeah,
they got their back feet, but they don't got arms.
Yeah,
so, like they only got wings, and so I think like once you like fruit bats, like there's things from the real world that function like this.
Okay, now that you say that. Yeah, that makes more sense. No, now that you say that, that makes a lot more sense to me. Okay.
Yeah, so that's like these are true to George R.R. Martin style dragons, which I like. I he was big on that on his dragons being a little bit different than the other fantasy dragons, which have the 4 legs, like the medieval dragons and stuff.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh well, there aren't any creatures that have 4 legs and have wings from the real world. They all have this different setup, and I thought that's cool. It's his flavor, and I think it makes the dragons unique on the screen. Like, we've all seen the 4-legged dragons, right? But less we've seen the fruit bat style dragon.
Yeah.
So dragon diversity is also a big thing I enjoy in this series, where not all the dragons look alike. It almost kind of looks like they were bred from different bloodlines of dragon. Like, some of them look kind of similar. Like, you're like, okay, these dragons look like maybe they come from a similar dragon stock or whatever. Or, like, and then maybe, like, Caraxes looks like, well, maybe it's a little bit different of a dragon. Like, he's still definitely, like a dragon. They're all dragons, but, like, these dragons look a little different. Like, kind of like how you like all my cats. But cats look a little different. Like one of my cats is big as hell, and the other cats are, like, smaller. But they all have different faces, and one cat's a tabby. It's like, so it was cool, I thought, that they didn't all look the same. Like, this is the dragon.
Which was a complaint from Game of Thrones, the TV show.
Yeah, it was good to the series, and it was good to because I don't even recall if the dragons get great descriptors in the books. I think
my god, that was like a problem.
Beasts or whatever, and so it's like
that was a problem I had.
I know Caraxes is the bloodworm. Yeah.
That was a problem that I had with reading the books, because I get all of these descriptions of, like, these dragons flying around, and I'm like, wait, Maylis is the red one, but Caraxes is also a red one. But also Syrax is golden and Sunfire is golden, but Sunfire looks more beautiful, and, like, in my head, I didn't know how to, like, picture that. I'm like, seeing this really, really helps. Yeah.
Because you could tell the Red Queen apart from Caraxes in a heartbeat. There's no question these are 2 different dragons, even though they're both red.
Yeah.
And so I love the dragons in their design, and the CG gets cheesy at certain points. This is true. I'm typically a big fan of not CGI, and I always wish that they would go back to like animatronics and stuff. But it's really harder. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are. It's not my show. If it was my show, I'd be screaming and I'd demand the ghost of Jim Henson and shit. But but either way, like, Caraxes has typically been also the best animated dragon, in my opinion. I think that's kind of generally agreed across the board. Maybe I'm wrong, but most people I hear are pretty hot on Caraxes' animations.
Is it just me, or does he look a bit different in this scene specifically compared to, like, season 1? I was looking at pictures from Caraxes back in season 1. He looks a bit, like, darker in this scene specifically, and that's I don't know. I mean, like, sure, but I don't know if that's something
I think it's just the lighting, to be honest, which it kind of makes sense with the grayness and stuff.
That's fair. One thing did you notice that Cyrax like looks visibly older in back in episode 1 of season 2? Did you catch that?
Not really. I didn't really catch it, to be quite honest.
That's fair. But yeah, dragons are cool. Let's talk. Do you have anything more you would like to say about Daemon and Caraxes, or
no,
shall we?
You can move on. Let's look at our next shot and see what we got going on here.
Okay, yeah, I want to talk about some of the smaller, quote unquote, like smaller characters that we have this season, because I think they're doing a really good job at like setting them up to be potentially like really big players in the story going forwards. Let's start off talking about Jacaerys, right? Jace.
Yeah.
He did some, like, honestly, am I incorrect in saying that he's probably like the MVP of the Blacks so far? Like, cause like he secured the twins. He secured like the alliance with Jane Eyre. He secured an alliance with Cregan Stark. And he proposed the dragon seeds.
He's been doing the right diplomacy. I would agree with that. He's the MVP of like running the diplomacy for sure. Yeah. Which like again, that they're in a position where they really need to get a lot of allies. You know, they unfortunately have to take everything the Greens have, and so they shouldn't be exposing themselves, you know, too much. It's like going to Storm's End. That's kind of risky. It's like kind of what got the first kid killed, you know. But he's right about how you can't have no presence, and so I think that he's been used pretty strategically by the Black faction to to get some sort of good alliances going, which is important.
And comparing like the action that Jace takes versus the actions that like Aegon and Aemond are taking, I very much get the sense that like, and I don't know if you're getting this as well, but I'm getting the sense that Team Green really wants to emulate Aegon the Conqueror, and meanwhile Team Black is really wanting to emulate Jaehaerys, the Conciliator, because all of the actions that Jace are taking, they're diplomatic. They're not like, oh, we're gonna burn all of these all of these castles down and pillage everything.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you're saying about that, and I think that's the perils of being named Aemon or being Daemon, right? Daemon has to prove that he's a conqueror, that he's a king, because otherwise he's always going to live in the shadow of his wife and his wife's kid, right? You know, and he's going to live in the shadow of his brother, and he doesn't want to live in all these shadows. He doesn't necessarily like. He's honestly pretty damn good about not usurping the throne. Like, you can give Daemon shit for a lot of stuff, but you can't give him shit for being loyal about usurping the throne past a certain point. There's a certain point where he just stops trying to usurp the throne, right? You know? And, like, he's an asshole, he's a dick, and he's constantly wanting you to call him the king, but he's not actually trying to take the power away to any meaningful degree. He's just writhing. And, like, that sucks, because he'll writhe his way right into getting himself killed and potentially losing you the war or whatever. But he won't, like, directly challenge you and attempt to throw you off the chair, you know? So he's super concerned with his legacy, and so on the flip side, you got Aegon, you have Aemon, who's in the exact same position, you know what I mean? In the shadow of his dad, in the shadow of everybody else, he wants to be the king, but his dork brother's in charge, you know? And then Aegon himself that's the worst curse of all. You're fucking named Aegon. Like, you've gotta be an Aegon. Or nobody wants to follow you, and everyone makes fun of you, and they write bad about you in the histories, right? You know? So it's a terrible position for all of them to be in, because, unlike Rhaenyra and Jace, who have the ability to chill out, you know, not that they're always doing it, sometimes they're doing it better than others, but they have the ability to chill out, and they have the ability to assess and take time and make agreements and try to, like when Rhaenyra goes on her little rant about, oh, my father only taught me how to serve drinks and talk to people, and it's like, okay, but actually, that's kind of a good skill.
Yeah, that's a really good skill.
You know all the words, you know how to talk, and you're good about negotiating, and you watched your dad, you know, as lame as he was, keep the kingdom together. Those aren't bad skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so I really agree with that assessment 100%, that they're kind of embodying that other side of Targaryen heritage and rulership or whatever that, kind of comes more from the stability, even though everybody hates them, doesn't want them. The Greens are a little bit more hot to trot on a conqueror murder train.
Yeah.
They have a double whammy of out to prove themselves, unlike the Blacks, who just are stuck with Daemon, trotting around being Daemon.
Yeah, good, good stuff. Okay, I don't know if I want to talk about like explicit spoiler stuff or not. I guess we can talk more about Jacaerys and stuff at the end of the video ? And for now, do you have anything more to say about Jacaerys, or shall we move on to the next slide?
I don't have much more to say about Jace if we're not going to talk about his fate.
Yeah. That's what I want to talk about, maybe like at the end of this video.
Yeah. So if we're just going to wait to talk about his fate, let's jump ahead, because I have serious wonders in my mind about his fate.
Yes.
There was like a whole third brother that got like cut, and I thought his death had to do with that brother, and now I'm just lost. So.
Okay. Baela. I thought that Baela had the best scene this episode, where she is talking to Corlys and presenting him with the Hand of the King badge, or Hand of the Queen in this case. That scene was very moving, especially because like they were honoring Rhaenys in that scene as well. Where do you think Baela's story is gonna go from here? Because right now she's clearly being set up as like a bigger player.
Doesn't she get a dragon later, or am I wrong about that?
We've already seen her dragon, Moondancer, in episode 3.
I think our sister, the one who does not have a dragon currently.
Yeah, Rhaena, and we're gonna get to Rhaena in a bit.
So let me bring up my complaint about this, and this is why this is actually why I confused the two sisters. Mm-hmm. We do not get enough House Velaryon, and it is annoying me because I like House Velaryon a great deal because I find their story and their place and the whole conflict to be fucking fascinating, and I feel like they didn't do enough to elaborate on them in the first season. So I was really holding out for like a lot of time with House Velaryon, and I'm not getting it. Mm-hmm. And it's bothering me because the problem is that the characters are flying on the screen too fast. And so the sisters kind of blur together in my mind, and they shouldn't, because they fulfill pretty different roles. And then we barely saw the Queen That Never Was at all before she died, in my opinion. Like, we could have got a lot more time with her. Yeah. And we haven't seen Corlys that much, and we haven't seen anything yet, I thought, from the guys that they brought up, one of them which is Adam of fucking Hull.
Yeah, Alan and Adam.
We just need more time with these people, and they're not giving me the time with the characters, and so I have had very little thoughts about them this season so far, because so much time and energy has been focused on the Greens, which is good, and on Daemon, which is good. They just aren't filling that in with any of the other people. The Blacks are just getting sandwiched into forgettable moments that blow past me. So like that, at least that's how it feels on one watch of the show, and I've only watched all the episodes one time, so forgive me if I'm a bad watcher and have missed some parts. I'm not picking stuff up, but what I want to see from all of House Velaryon is more of House Velaryon, because it's just the small instances of the characters is just not doing it for me.
Yeah, I mean, because like in each of the episodes, like there's probably only like one good scene with House Velaryon like per episode, and
it's like, and they're such an important part. That's the problem. House Velaryon and House Hightower are equally large participants in the overall story.
Yeah.
Like the real story actually has like 4 players. That's Velaryon Hightower, the Targaryen Hightowers, and the Velaryon Targaryens. Like that's like what because that's the recipe. Like I know, and real book critics will probably call me an asshole and tell me to shut the fuck up. But more or less, those are the 4 important ones that you have to remember. If you learn nothing else, it's that like House Velaryon's pretty damn important. Like they're very important. And if you get into the conspiracy of the book and stuff, the conspiracy is the Valarians are kind of being more or less written out of history by the Maesters in favor of framing the Hightowers as being cool as hell. So it just the not having the Valarians being as prevalent as the Hightowers bothers me. And like I said, because I'm dumb and old, and hopefully your show doesn't mind me saying this, I might dabble in the crazy cabbage from time to time. I don't always catch all of everything with them, because they're not providing me enough things put together. Yeah. And then, like I said, and then important players like Coelus Valarian is extremely important. We don't see very much this season.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm
sure he's going to come out of the woodwork here in a minute now that he's gotten the hand badge back in his hand and stuff, but either way, we should have been seeing a lot more stuff. We needed more conversations. We needed more time in the shipyards. Yeah. We need more, these things are going to become important. We need to see them more. And we need to hang out with him more. We need to understand why he was disgruntled, and then we need to see them grieving more, and we need to see how that decision affects him and drives him into wanting to accept the handship. Yeah. And, we're not because he'd already accepted it, but he was just pissing off, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't that how it was? Or had he actually turned it down?
Sorry?
Had he already accepted the handship and he was just pissing off, or had he not accepted it yet, or had he turned it down? What was the?
It's ambiguous. This episode, we see him he has the Hand of the Queen badge in his hand, and then he sort of closes his fist around it. So I would say that's confirmation.
She tried to give it to him earlier, right? Didn't she try to give it to him previously, and he didn't want it?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Because there's a certain point where there's a reason why he's off at the Sea Stone chair and not on Dragonstone, and that's because they had a spat, right? I thought so. Or am I incorrect? Was he just off preparing his fleet or something?
I think, I need to brush up on my Fire and Blood lore. Maybe the I remember...
Totally I thought there was a reason why he was putting distance between himself and the throne, and I think he was blockading King's Landing last time I'd heard, but I didn't know that... I thought there was a reason why he wasn't hanging out the council, and that's because he was a little teed off, but maybe I'm incorrect about that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. What was Corlys Velaryon doing in episodes 1 through 3, I guess?
Supposedly they were was it blockading? Supposedly they were blockading King's Landing, but that's, once again, I would have... So... I forget. They talked about sending dragons against the blockade or whatever, I thought.
Aegon said, he plans to send Vhagar to burn the blockade to ash, but that never happened.
So, it would have been nice if we had then cut to a scene of Corlys out there on the blockade with a bunch of ballistas on his ship, and one of his mates being like, my lord, we don't see any dragons today, and he'd be like, good, if you see any, fucking torch those assholes with those ballistas, yo. He could be doing something in a scene. He's a great actor. Why are they not showing him doing things? Why are they not showing what the Valarians are doing? Have him tell us what his position on the war is. Have him talk to one of his co-captains and be like, okay, I feel like we're pretty good with this blockade. We're starving them down, and then when you show King's Landing being full of people who want to get out, who are pissed off, and there's bad food prices, now it makes sense. Well, okay, we're not able to import as much food as we would like from other places because he's blocking the port, There's a lot of things that I was just disappointed with in terms of the presence of House Velaryon, given how important they are.
Especially Laena. I wanted to see a lot. I wanted to see a lot more Laena back in episode or season 1, because in the books it said that Rhaenyra and Laena were besties, but we never got a scene between those two.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I think I said this a long time ago when I talked to the Drunken Banthas, way back when the first season was happening. That was my complaint about the Valarians. Was the first season I was just I love them, but we need more Valarians. This is not really a story just about the Hightowers versus Rhaenyra. This is a story about the Hightowers and then the Targaryens splitting. And then on the one side is also the Valarians. That's who's important. So I feel that the problem is, I think the problem comes down to the fact that they are trying to make a 2-faction TV show out of a 4-faction equation.
Yeah.
I mean, you could maybe boil it down to a 3-faction equation, maybe, I guess, if you want to just call the Hightowers and their Targaryens one team and just say that's good and they never had any arguments, even though clearly there's some rifts going on there the show definitely acknowledges and plays with for good right. They're fun to play with, It's fun that Alicent is having a hard time controlling her kids and Kristen Cole is making moves and, people are fracturing and that's fun, right? But that's clearly 2 factions, right? We got the Hightowers, which feel a certain way about what the Crown should be doing, and then we got the Crown, which is teenagers who are fucking off with Kristen Cole.
Yeah.
2 factions there. So there's 2 factions on the other side, too. There's Rhaenyra, who's the queen, but that's only half of her house. The other half is her entire functional military, which is the Velaryons, Mm-hmm. Sorry, I could ramble about this for days. You could tell that this is my major problem with the Velaryons. They're just not around enough. So back to the scenes.
I you're in luck because I think that we will be getting more Velaryons in the future of this show. It just sucks because most of them are dead.
Yeah.
It just sucks because
this would be the great footage if they would just add some extra footage. If they just had some extras, if they could just release the Velaryon cut. We just had 30 minutes of extra Velaryon footage.
Didn't they have
every 2 episodes? And that way you have context that you need about how important the house is.
They had a scene back in season 1. Where Rhaenys was talking to Rhaena, I think, in episode 10. And they had another scene where, Daemon was talking to his children, Baela and Rhaena. And it's man, now that I think about it, Daemon has never said a single word to his kids on this show, huh? Ew. I don't know. I wish we...
Rare, It's extremely rare, and it doesn't make any sense because we saw them in the previous season, and they were a very close family. So they need to either give us a reason why he's distant from his children now, and why they don't relate, and why they're having an easier time talking to his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Or they need to go back and, they can't go back, but they should have written it in a way where Daemon has a close relationship with his daughters, but that is not able to help him from his torment with the throne. I love the idea of Daemon destroying all of his personal relationships because of the throne. But that's so cool. What a fun character, man. But, you can't just have him walk off from his fucking kids and not send them. Make no sense. You say something to your kids, man. You were just loving your kids and, reading them stories or whatever in the previous season. What's going on, bro? What's happening? Why do you not love your kids anymore?
Maybe it just happens all off screen, Maybe Daemon loves his kids off screen, but we just don't have time in the show to
or give us the reason. Give it have them have a conversation with Daemon's new wife, who they are close to, because they feel that they can trust her, and say, when our mother died, we lost our dad in a lot of regards, and he's not close to us anymore, and it gave us a lot of hope that he'd change when he married you, but nothing's changed, and we don't know what's up with him. And then Rhaenyra could have been like, I don't know what's up with him either, and this is bothering me, and he keeps being an asshole who won't talk, and he takes his anger out on me, and they could have had a whole conversation about it. And that would have been character growth and development. It would have been a chance for us to learn more about the sisters and kind of build up their unique characters. Because obviously these characters, they had traits that were manifesting, but that was very limited because it was all about what you were talking about earlier, the who gets to go to war, which is this cool, fun, wonderful, very Martonian thing, the youth and war, and how older people's bullshit drives the youth to, crave killing each other. It's great, it's good, but it doesn't do much for them as individual characters.
Mm-hmm. We were talking a bit about
this whole time. I'm just
no worries. It's good to get your honest opinions, but we were talking about Daemon a bit in relation to his children. That got me thinking. George said, I forget where, but there's a George R. R. Martin quote out there where he says that Daemon Targaryen is equal parts good and evil. I personally think that ratio is bullshit. Where do you think the ratio is? What
the Damon we've seen is way more wackadoodle.
Yeah, what?
Good, you know?
For the fun of it, what percentage would you give Damon on the good and evil scale? How much good, how much evil?
He's like 5% good. He will not take your throne.
Okay.
But he'll do everything short of taking your throne. He'll kill your friends. He'll kill your enemies' children. He'll lose your wars for you. He'll get dragons killed. He'll kill himself. He'll stop talking to his family. You know.
Yeah.
He's a
No.
95% failure rate for Damon.
5%
success rate. Did not usurp his brother's throne.
Yeah. No. When episode 10 of the last season aired, I remember people on the internet being like very surprised that Damon would choke Rhaenyra, and I'm like, guys, you didn't see this coming? He literally like killed his previous, or he killed what's her name, Rhea Royce with a rock.
Yeah.
And like,
so that's why the Rhea Royce scene bothered me. And like I said, they could have maybe redeemed it by using it as a gore-fest flashback to get their HBO quotas or whatever. I'm not saying you can't make good use of the scene when you have it, but you didn't need to have it. That was a weird scene. The Obi-Wan Kenobi robes did not help. It was all bad. Like they should have just had her die, and that's a great ambiguous moment, right? You know, she's dead. The one guy comes to court and immediately blames Damon. And Damon's a douche, so of course he makes a joke and fucking tells that guy to fuck off or he'll kill him. And then nobody knows if he did it or not. And we just all hate Damon because what a douche.
Yeah. I feel kind of bad because we were staring at Bela this whole time and we kind of didn't talk about her. But hopefully we'll see more of her.
Which episode, if she's the dragon riding one, which episode does she attack Kristen Cole? That's the
episode 3. Right? Episode 3. So she was scouting and she sees Kristen Cole.
Yeah, let's see. We hadn't even seen her fly a dragon in a long ass time. Like, we don't even see her fly a dragon much in this, right?
In the books, Moondancer right now is too small to fly. They aged Moondancer up a bit, but in the books, she only flies Moondancer like towards the end of the war.
I could swear one of the sisters is good at battle and gets in basically a fight and is almost killed, but she survived.
That would be her. Spoiler.
Yeah, because one of them actually becomes a proficient warrior, I thought.
Yeah.
And she survives the war.
Yeah.
But it's really hurt.
Wait.
And so that was something that I was waiting to see too. I didn't know at what point. I forgot from reading the book originally at what point she got joined into battle in the first place. You know.
I am so sorry to cut you off here. I want to go on a David Bowie tangent. Can I go on a David Bowie tangent?
Whatever you like.
And I can't talk about this without talking about like major spoilers. So spoiler section now. Everybody at home, not like we weren't talking about spoilers before, but Ryan Condal in an interview said that Bela's dragon, Moondancer, was based off of David Bowie, and now I can't unsee it. Which but also like that got me thinking like Bela and Bela's dragon was Rhaenyra's like last dragon towards the end of the war, like after Rhaenyra dies, after everybody dies, and so that just got me thinking like Bela and Moondancer, like they're Major Tom trying to get to ground control, and they can't hear them anymore. Cool stuff. That's all I have to say.
So I have a comment about Jace, if we could actually go back.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Slides. We're going to go back slides, but I just want to say back in the conversation.
Okay, sure.
Because it was the same thing that I had to say about Bela.
Okay.
So my problem with the Valyrians in general, especially the sisters, don't say enough, right? I feel the exact same way about Jace, and I felt the same way about his brother and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's fundamentally a major problem on Team Black in general. Team Black is really stacked with prolific personalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Velaryon, Corlys Velaryon, prolific personality. The man's a fucking legend. He dominates the screen. Great actor. It's just hard to compete with him in a scene. His wife is not only very important in the story, but Rhaenys is the queen. She's the queen that never was. But she's a dragon rider. Great actress. Very powerful, potent character on the screen. You love a scene with the two of them together. And then they got Daemon. And then they got Rhaenyra, star of the show. It is so hard to get, realistic presence on Team Black because, all of the adults are power players in their storyline position that demand a ton of screen time.
Yeah.
But they're also just, great, phenomenal actors.
Yeah.
Screen and people want to see in these long scenes. And I think that contributes to it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's contributing to this issue because I couldn't even remember Jace's name. I wanted to call him his brother's name, and this is what I mean. It's just the kids of Team Black. All the kids of Team Black blend together.
Oh man, you're cutting out a bit.
I wanted to call Jace Lucaries, but that's wrong. I'm like, no, Lucaries was the one who got eaten.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I think this is also why they didn't even have time for that third brother that I remember was out there. I'm just like, I remember there being three brothers.
You mean Joffrey? We got Joffrey. Joffrey's a player in this show. He doesn't do much, but
I don't even remember him. I thought
he's in the background. He's in the background. And so are Aegon and Viserys the Younger.
Yeah, no, I remember. I know them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just
the story is so big, and
the story is so big that because Team Black has a lot of kids that are really important. And what's it? It's Aegon the Younger, Aegon the Third, that becomes the king in the very end. Yeah,
Aegon the Third.
So yeah, it's Rhaenyra's son that becomes king in the very end, and that's important. And we had a little bit of screen time, but yeah, we don't get enough reminders. We don't get enough. To me, we don't get enough juxtaposition. There should be a lot of juxtaposition between King Aegon in King's Landing and Aegon the Third, so that the audience who is unaware that he will be the king in the end keeps going, why the fuck did they keep transitioning to that baby? What's up with that baby? Why show me that baby? And then eventually people will be like, they keep going to that. This has to mean something, and so eventually it will has to mean something. But I think that there's critical errors like that, going on in terms of the way that they are portraying all of the younger generation on Team Black. Mm-hmm. And that starts with the Valyrian sisters, and it ends with all of Rhaenyra's children that you can't keep fucking track of.
Yeah. The show needs to be longer, which is unfortunate because, the thing about House of the Dragon Season 1 was they kind of did need to rush because, they didn't know if the series was going to be good or not. So, I guess they wanted to tell a cohesive story, right?
Yeah. And see, that's the thing is, I feel like that's that HBO master, you're serving a network that wants to make money and
the
stuff.
Mush-room.
It's they're running on the theoretical premise that the show may or may not make audiences happy, and it's gosh, if you just let them tell a good story, you're gonna have a happy audience.
Yeah.
But they can't think that way because they gotta make money and do shareholders, and it's it's a whole thing. So, but it's annoying. But no, I think that all that compromise is why we get the deficiencies we get, and
it's understandable.
It's a little unfortunate because I don't have much to say about Layla. Don't have much to say about her sister. Don't have much to say about any of the kids in general on Team Black because I can barely fucking remember them.
That's fair. And it's understandable why these things must happen. It's not Ryan Condal's fault. This isn't me trying to say they should bring Dave and Dan back. That's not what this is.
Oh no, yeah, they definitely should bring Dave and Dan back. That'd be a war crime. We would literally have to prosecute at The Hague.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think
Ryan Condal's cool. I don't mind Condal. He's doing a good job.
Yeah, no, he's doing an excellent job.
You can't be perfect, and you're working for HBO, and like it's already like a little bit of an interpretive dance in terms of the writers kind of get to make what they want to make. So I think we're all satisfied with what we're getting.
Heck yeah, this season has been great so far, with like just a couple of flaws here and there. Yeah. Game
of Thrones is the one that I was like, I got upset at a certain point and stopped watching versus this.
Yeah.
Watching this is fun.
Yeah, no, like back in season 3, right? Like after the Red Wedding, we were all like, okay, so when's Lady Stoneheart gonna appear? When's Lady Stoneheart gonna appear? And then episode 10 aired, and it was like, when's Lady Stoneheart gonna appear? And then people were saying, like, oh, season 4, episode 1, the cold open will be Lady Stoneheart. And then that didn't happen. And then we were like, what? I remember, like, that, was it, I think it was, like, the Aegon plot that people were expecting for, like, season 5 or 6 or whatever. That never happened. All the way back in season 2, like, they didn't even know if they were going to do a Greyjoy plot because they didn't know if, like, they were going to get renewed for, like, so many seasons. But yeah. That's the problem with, like, TV adaptations, I guess.
Yeah. It's just an annoying thing where it's like, come on, guys, just, give the writers the okay for a couple seasons. Let them know that they can survive for a couple seasons so they can just do their job, man.
And that's why, like, TV shows usually, like, pick up the pace and get their stride going, like, after season 3 or whatever, which is what I can see happening to House of the Dragon as well. Like, I feel like season 3 and onwards, like, will be really good.
I think the show hit its stride well in season 1, to be honest. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but this is my opinion. The show had a few hiccups along the way, but like I was by the time that the 3rd episode I watched it, I was good to watch the whole thing. By the time the 2nd episode happened, the first episode, to be honest, had me on the rocks. There were some points where I was like, man, you're killing me with these knights all murdering each other at a tournament, and then the queen that ever was making a joke about how it's all because they have too much jizz in their nutsack. You're killing me, bro. This is too much to watch.
This is fair.
But there was a bunch of good stuff that saved it, and I liked like there was some pretty corny, like the hunt where the White Hart like walks up to Rhaenyra and the White Hart's like unimaginably poorly animated. I'm like, just get a large horse, glue some antlers to it next time. Just stop with this nonsense. Who's in charge of this?
I'm not saying that season 1 was bad. Like, season 1 was really good in my opinion, but I'm just saying that, like, I feel like it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah.
I feel like
outside those funny things, I thought season 1 hit it off quite early, where I was well engaged. Even though I make fun of it a lot and I joke and I say a bunch of mean shit, like a TV show doesn't have to be the best show in the world to be good, and House of the Dragon is quite good to watch. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. Like the Rings of Power, like they learned their lesson to not air at the same time as House of the Dragon. They're doing it this fall.
I still have not seen any of the Rings of Power, so I know
that's fair.
None of it. But but it's hard to run a fantasy parallel to a good HBO show, just because it's like, when they do make a show, they can put on a pretty good series. They got a lot of budget, they got a lot of access, and they got a lot of audience. So it's difficult to run against HBO.
Yeah. Do we want to talk a bit about Rhaena Targaryen? I know that you say you don't have.
She's the one who can't go to war, right? She's the one who can't go to war.
She's the one who's in the Eyrie right now.
We got a little bit more frustration, fun time, character development out of her.
Yeah, and
I don't remember what the fuck her story is though in the books. So you're gonna have to enlighten me as to where her story goes in the books.
Yeah. So since we're in spoiler territory, this is fine, I guess. But she does jack shit.
Nothing happens. Okay.
Yeah, she does jack shit until her dragon morning hatches, and then she doesn't do anything. She's just kind of there. She doesn't really do anything. She hangs out in the Vale. But clearly.
So do you think much is going to happen with her in the show? Do you think they're going to give her any sort of extra fun stuff to do, or do you think it's going to be kind of they shuffle her off?
have you heard of the rumors that they're replacing Nettles with Reyna?
That's interesting. I had not heard anything about that.
Okay, well, what are your thoughts on that now that you just heard it? Are you familiar with Nettles' story?
I don't like it. I would prefer if they kept Nettles.
Same.
Only because Nettles is involved in a couple of fun things. One is taming the dragon without apparently having any dragon blood.
Yeah.
I know there's theories on Nettles actually being someone's dragon bastard, basically, but I don't know if any of that's ever verifiable.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as we know, she just is a random chick who can tame dragons, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that she's essential in a degree to Daemon killing himself.
Yeah.
In a fight with Aemon because of the letter, and you know the story. Yeah, elaborate the story to you.
Yeah.
But I always thought that was fun because I liked the idea of them not actually being a couple, and that Daemon was telling the truth. And so I thought that I was curious to see how HBO handled it, because I figured HBO was going to make it happen in a sexual way, which I was like, be careful, HBO.
Yeah.
Don't make it weird. But I thought also maybe they won't. Maybe they'll use that opportunity to pull a virgin on us, and we'll get Daemon being like, I'm just being a good old Daemon, and I'm not doing anything bad this one time, and it comes around to bite me in the ass. Like,
yeah,
that'd be kind of fun, actually, right? Like, he's the one time he's not being a Daemon, and then he gets a letter being like, fuck you, Daemon, stop being such a Daemon, and he's like, I stopped being a Daemon. Wouldn't that be interesting? But I just didn't know how they pull it off. So.
Do you want my pitch? Pitch?
Go for it.
Okay, here's my, this is fanfic territory, right? I don't know if any of these things are going to happen, but this is my pitch. All right, so you know how Laenor is still alive, correct?
Yes.
So Laenor is still alive. This is indisputable. We see that. So technically, that would make Aegon the Younger and Viserys the Younger bastards, because Rhaenyra didn't get annulled, right? Rhaenyra marrying Daemon, that's like an illegitimate marriage. Like her sons Aegon and Viserys are bastards. So what if Laenor, later down the line, comes back in some way, and Daemon and Rhaenyra finds out about it? All of a sudden, Daemon knows, okay, so all of her sons are bastards. That makes me the rightful heir to the Iron Throne if, Aegon, Aemond, all of Team Green and Rhaenyra dies. I would be the heir. Rhaena and Baela will be my successors. And maybe, if Rhaena is actually going to steal the place of Nettles, maybe that's why Daemon will start paying attention. Maybe that's how Daemon will start paying attention to Rhaena. It's like, you are my heir. Okay, you are my heir. I need to protect you.
So Daemon will kind of bend towards usurping the
throne. Yeah. And Rhaenyra sending the letter is like, I can't have this be. I need to put this. I need to put this down. Right. That's my pitch.
Interesting. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with it. I don't have any major thoughts on what I think will happen. I don't really know, and so I'm interested to see what they do.
I think that would be a compelling story. There will definitely be some fans out there who would complain about, this not being a faithful adaptation of the works, which is that's valid. But to be fair, okay, House of the Dragon, we already have a lot of characters. We have Hugh Hammer and Ulf being introduced. You gotta cut some characters somewhere. Otherwise things might get too diluted. You can disagree with me, but it would be very hard if we had lots of scenes with all of the characters, right? Unfortunately, you have to cut corners somewhere. And if you can still like bring it back and tell a compelling story with the changes that you're going with, okay, like fine. I'm not too displeased with it. Would I prefer like Nettles to stay her own character? Yeah, but I wouldn't be like frothing at the mouth of anger like if they did the Raina Nettles change. What say you?
Yeah, I would find it interesting if they did it right, but I don't know if they would pull it off right. So I remain kind of curious to see how they'll handle it.
Yeah.
But I hope they keep Nettles to be, and just to be, oh, sorry. For me, I hope they keep Nettles, because I thought that was a fun, interesting dynamic.
Yeah. I hope we see Nettles in season 3, maybe. I hope we see Dayron in season 3. Like, Dayron is like, if Dayron gets cut, like, I will throw hands. I will be frothing at the mouth in anger if Dayron gets cut. I don't think he will because he already got mentioned, but yeah. Probably gonna see Dayron in season 3. I'm just gonna see what our last...
And what's our next slide?
Our next slide is something to end our episode on. This is Rhaenyra. This is the scene where she and Jace are talking about the dragon seeds. And since we're in spoiler territory, we can talk about the dragon seeds. So, as we talked about Nettles a little bit before with Rhaena. But we also have Adam, Ulf, and Hugh Hammer.
Did you? We've met so far, right? Or is it Adam and Hugh? Which was the Smith?
We've met.
Was Hugh? Was it Hugh? Yeah.
We've met all the dragon seeds.
Now, where was Ulf? Did we meet? Where did we meet Ulf?
I think it was either. I think it was in episode 3. We have this one scene where we were in King's Landing, and then this random guy sits at like a bar or something, or a brothel, I forget. But he tells this other guy that he's the bastard brother of Daemon and Viserys. That was that guy. Yeah.
I'm just totally spacing out and losing it. Okay. Well, none of all that is interesting. And the one I was thinking about was the blacksmith guy that was making he had a conversation with Aegon, who I was loving Aegon in the season. That's why I was kind of also disappointed he got burned up so early.
Yeah.
Aegon was a good time. He's terrible, awful character, but he's fun, good actor.
Yeah. So we've seen all the dragon seeds. By the way, yeah, I agree with you. Tom Glencarney, very fun, like very dynamic. Like he can portray like so many sides of Aegon, like the funny side of Aegon, the totally stoned side of Aegon, like, and the very vengeful side of Aegon, and even like the softer side of Aegon as well. Like in this episode, in episode 5, where he's just in the bed and he's crying out for his mummy.
Yeah, he played the character very well. He
did a really good job.
He did for Aegon what the actor that played Viserys did for Viserys in the first.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed.
He gave him dimension that made him a really enjoyable character because you either loved him or you hated him or both.
Yeah. I'm in that last category. I don't think he's a great person, but I also sympathize with him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great acting, wonderful character portrayal.
To the dragon seeds, back to the dragon seeds. Did you catch in this episode that Hugh's wife, Kat, her brother lives in Tumbleton? Did you catch that?
Yes. I
That's really intriguing.
What a terrible idea to go to Tumbleton, because that's how you're going to get involved in the second.
Yeah, like that's such an intriguing idea. Like, how do you think that's gonna play out? How, like, because, Hugh and Ulf betray Rhaenyra by burning the town of Tumbleton and joining Daeron in his endeavors in, like, season 3 or season 4, probably season 4.
There's a little maester trickery afoot there in the books, at least, but I'm curious to see how the show handles it. That's another one where I'm like, I know it involves some letters in the books, but I can't remember exactly the whole process. I just know there's some letters, and that's definitely a Maester's thing. You can tell there's like some seeds of the Maesters trying to influence the war. And so I think it's going to be very curious. I'm very curious, how the show's going to handle that. Whether they will keep it in the dark, or whether they'll do a very overt surprise Maester conspiracy on us.
Mm-hmm.
So I, in the first season, was really holding out for some sort of extremely overt confirmation of a Maester conspiracy, because they had some wonderful little setups. The baby's born, and we last see it alive on screen in the hands of the Maester.
Yeah.
And then there's one or two times the Maester says something and then looks the other way, or looks all shifty at Hightower.
Mm-hmm.
And you could totally tell it's that they're having a moment. And so I was like, they definitely have set up everything that would allow them to pull off some kind of very overt, the Maesters have been helping the Hightowers this whole time, and they write letters to these dudes, and that's why the dragons flip, But I don't know if they'll play it that way, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I just found it very intriguing that we get, a Tumbleton mention this episode, and I can't think of a reason why Hugh would, burn and sack Tumbleton when his brother-in-law lives there. So I was like, I know you just finished the episode, but do you have any thoughts about that? How would you reconcile his actions with what we learned this episode?
It's interesting. I think there's two battles for Tumbleton, right? So
there
maybe
are two.
Everything changes hands, people have died or something,
yeah.
and whole families killed, or I don't know, maybe they've gotten out and gotten into safety because he's, now serving the dragon people, and he's got a dragon, and he's got some ability to provide for his family now and put them in a safer place. I don't really know. But I think that they're trying to, to funnel the audience in the direction of being able to identify where the events are taking place. That's why they're kind of name dropping it early.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We can all be like, hey, we're setting our eyes on the prize. We're going to Tumbleton. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just really excited to see the dragon seeds. I'm excited to see we're probably gonna see Vermithor and Silverwing next episode. I think that's a very probable occurrence.
I'm excited for those dragons too. That's something I've been holding out for, lots of dragons.
Yeah. We've never seen Silverwing, which is really interesting. I want to see how what Silverwing's design is going to be, because Queen Alysanne rode Silverwing.
That's a good point. Yeah, Silverwing should be a pretty cool dragon design. That's actually definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah. I've always expected Silverwing to be very regal looking, and that would kind of be ironic later in the series where we see Ulf on Silverwing. I feel like that would be a kind of funny moment. But yeah, I'm just really looking forward to all the dragons in episode 6. Oh, and Sea Smoke as well. We're probably going to see Sea Smoke next episode, too. Dang.
Yeah, Sea Smoke, I thought, was flying around in this episode. Wasn't he out there? Or was that the previous episode?
That was one of the previous episodes. I think in episode 3, Sea Smoke was flying out. And in episode 1 or episode 2, I think, Sea Smoke, flew above Adam's head, which kind of, I guess, foreshadows Adam claiming Sea Smoke. I'm very interested in seeing how all that plays out. Yeah. Okay, so one more dragon-related question for you. Ryan Condal said that in this season, we are going to see 5 new dragons. And so far, we've seen 2. we've seen Moondancer, and we've seen Tyraxes briefly in the cage in episode 3. Who do you think are the 3 new dragons we're gonna see in these next 3 episodes?
Well, you said 2 of them a minute ago, right? That you were expecting to get a hold of, yeah?
Vermithor we saw in season 1, so Vermithor doesn't count as a new
Silver
dragon.
Ring, yeah, Silver Ring. I lose track of all the dragons, to be honest.
Okay, that's fair.
Tell me on a few dragons, but do the Blacks have any other dragons that they're able to ride yet, or that they totally locked out of dragons?
Okay, so
you also got the Cannibal.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like Sheep Stealer, but like
who Nettles claims, but again, I don't know. I predict that we're maybe gonna see Stormcloud, which is Aegon the Younger's dragon, the very, very tiny dragon. I predict
these super small dragons.
Yeah, I want to see, and I was so sad when I heard that like Stormcloud had already hatched, because I want to see a dragon hatching in this series. I want to see a dragon hatching, like a literal like baby dragon. But that ship has sailed. But we'll probably... That would
be interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting.
We're probably going to see Stormcloud. We're probably going to see Silverwing. And I think maybe, like, if they want to go all out, like, maybe they could even show the Cannibal. I don't know.
Yeah, those the Cannibal and Sheep Stealer were the kind of ones I was waiting to see floating around. Sheep Stealer, if they are going to do a Nettles, they might need to tease a little early. Yeah. Unless they already did tease Sheep Stealer, I forget.
I don't think there was any mention of Sheep Stealer in the last couple of episodes. They did say that there were 3 wild dragons, though, back in episode 10. But, yeah. Cool stuff. So, random internet guy, Mr. Guy. Do you have any closing remarks? Do you have anything else that you would like to say about this episode as a whole, or?
In spite of all my grumpy gripiness, I am enjoying the show. It's good.
Yes.
Good show.
Very good show.
I think that overall it's stronger than Game of Thrones, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, I know there's a lot of people who maybe they didn't want to watch the show if they didn't like Game of Thrones, or I've even seen some people be like, oh, I don't know if I can watch the show. I haven't seen Game of Thrones. And I would say, go ahead and watch it. If you like it, you'll like it just fine if you didn't watch Game of Thrones, and you'll like it more than Game of Thrones probably if you liked Game of Thrones. And if you didn't like Game of Thrones, you'll definitely like it more than Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been fun. I had a good time, and I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch the whole show for sure because my brain's a little bit of a sieve, but it will be worth a rewatch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think about the Daemon and Rhaenyra fight in episode 2 of this season like daily. It's really good. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me on my little show. And yeah, of course.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope to come on some other time in the future and chat about the show.
Heck yeah! All right, see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.